Hello and welcome to today's lecture on variation tolerant design. In the last couple of lectures, we have discussed the minimization of leakage power techniques, and before that we have discussed how we can minimize switch capacitance, and also we can minimize the dynamic power. Now, we shall consider another very important aspects of the VLSI design, that is your variation tolerant design, and here is the agenda of today's lecture. First, the technology trend, and then I shall discuss about the sources of variations, then the impact of these variations on the circuit, and finally, we shall discuss about some variation tolerant design approaches. Coming to the technology trend, this is the trend which has been predicted by International Technology Roadmap of Semiconductor, in short ITRS. You can get it from their website www.itrs.org, and as you can see over the years how the technology node is changing, that means how the device size is changing. If you consider 1999, it is the 180 nanometer, then 2001 130 nanometer, 2003 90 nanometer, 2005 65 nanometer, 2007 45 nanometer, 2009 32 nanometer, and 2011 22 nanometer. So, this is the trend which has been predicted by ITRS, and as you can see, as the technology is changing, these are the effective gate lengths for different technologies. For 180 nanometer, it is 130 nanometer, for 130 nanometer 70 nanometer, for 90 nanometer 50 nanometer, and so on. So, if we consider 45 nanometer, which is the mature technology that is being used in the present day VLSI circuits, the effective channel length is 25 nanometer, and it will come down to 17 nanometer and 12 nanometer as the technology node changes from 32 nanometer and changes to 32 nanometer and 22 nanometer. Now, as we are growing from one technology generation to another technology generation, there is a change in the gate material. As you can see, traditionally polysilicon and silicon dioxide that is being used. So, on top of silicon dioxide, polysilicon is deposited to form the gate, and that is continued till 65 nanometer. But as you reach the 65 nanometer, you can see the number of atoms in the gate region. That means that silicon dioxide layer is reducing to 5 atoms. That means that silicon dioxide comprises only atoms of 5 atoms. So, you can imagine the thickness of that silicon dioxide layer, and obviously, if we want to continue in reducing the size, we have to switch to high K dielectric. Obviously, we cannot use silicon dioxide, but we have to move to some other material which has got high K dielectric. High K means the higher dielectric constant, and with that obviously you can have little more thickness, 5 to 10 atoms, and that will continue as you go from 45 nanometer to 32 nanometer and 20 nanometer. So, whenever you switch from you can see high K to high K material, we cannot use polysilicon as the gate material. We have to use metal on top of that high K dielectric to realize the gate. And these are the other parameters like number of gates, kilogates per millimeter square. It will keep on increasing, 160, then 240, then 480 and 900 to 1500, then 2800 and 4500, that is per millimeter square. So, this is another parameter, memory point. Let us not go into the details of this, but what we are observing, as the device size is shrinking, and I mean with the as we go from one technology generation to another technology generation, the device size is sinking, and you are able to put more and more transistors per millimeter square or more and more number of gates per millimeter square, and this will lead to some other problem, and the problem we can define as variation, process parameter variation. So, the variations can be of several types, process and environment. You can broadly categorize into two types, process and environment. So far as the process variation is concerned, again it can be categorized into two types, die to die. So, you are having different dies fabricated on a silicon wafer. So, this is die to die. What is the variation from one die to another die, and this represents the variation within die. So, there can be variations within die, and again the variations can be of two types, systematic variation, that means from one end of the die to the another end, that there will be variation because of you are fabricating with the help of photolithographic techniques, because of aberration and various other problems in the fabrication process. There can be a systematic variation from one end to the another end. So, that is your systematic variation. Another possibility is random variations. This variation can be random in nature. And then coming to the environment, you can see there are three parameters: voltage. Voltage may keep on changing because of various reasons, that supply voltage may change, or because of IR drop on the power line, voltage may change, there may be glitches. So, this is the environment, that means the environment in which the CPU chip is working is changing. Then temperature can change, as we know. The temperature is generated within the chip, and if there is no heat sink, proper heat sink, the heat cannot be dissipated, and as a result temperature will rise. And again another environment is input. You are keeping on changing the input, and input has, as we know, the impact has a lot of impact on the dynamic power. That means, the number of transitions that can take place is dependent on the input. So, environment is input, and that manufacturing process variations can be attributed to the drift in effective channel length, variation in the thickness of the silicon dioxide, and that will lead to variation in the threshold voltage, and also variation in the doping concentration in the within the channel. So, these changes will lead to this will affect the yield. Later on we shall see how the yield is affected. So, L effective is the effective channel length. This variation occurs because of the imperfection in photolithography, as I have told, and within die variation in effective channel length can be as high as 50%. And threshold voltage variation, that is your electrical parameter variation, that occurs, that is also because of variation in device geometry, and variation in Vt can be modeled as 10% of the Vt of the smallest device in a given technology. So, we find that various parameters are changing, physical parameters, channel length, thickness of the silicon dioxide, doping concentration, and so on, but simulation result has shown that the variation of the channel length is the widest. You can see this is the that means this is the 0 point, and you can see the sigma variation on both directions is quite high on both directions, and this line corresponds to the effective channel length Lg. So, effective channel length, that variation, and the other two are Tg and Vg, that means your thickness of the silicon dioxide and the threshold voltage. So, you find that this channel length variation is maximum, and that is the reason why we have to focus on techniques by which this impact of this channel length variation can be mitigated. And as we know, this channel length variation also leads to variation in the threshold voltage, because of VTH roll off. You may recall that in deep submicron technology, as the channel length varies, then it leads to variation of the threshold voltage. That means, if the channel length becomes shorter and shorter, the threshold voltage becomes smaller and smaller. Okay. And here is the impact of process variation. So, this has been taken from a paper by S. Borkar et al. So, parameter variations and impact on circuits and microarchitecture. So, as you can see this here the variation of the normalized leakage and variation normalized frequency, these two have been plotted. So, you can see that 30% delay variation. So, there is a 30% of the delay variation in this in the y axis, that is the delay variation. You can see these are the plots of the delay of the different dies that is being fabricated on a chip, and you can see the variation is 30% so far as the frequency is concerned, or delay. Frequency and delay, they represent the same thing. However, if we look at the variation in the leakage current, we find that that ISB, that is the leakage current, that variation is 20x. That means, the range over which the variation is occurring is 20 times. So, 20 times of this nominal variation. So, 0 and this is roughly 2, and here it is close to 20. So, you can see 20 times variation in the leakage between the fast and slow dies. That has been reported in 0.18 micron CMOS process. So, you can imagine that was the result that was actually obtained from 0.18 micron technology. So, as the device size is shrinking, that variation is increasing. So, in the present day technology, which are realized by using 45 nanometer or 33 nanometer technology, the variation will be more. And low frequency chips with low frequency, low leakage chips with low frequency, this is the low leakage chips with low frequency, they are to be discarded. Similarly, high frequency chips with too high leakage, that means, this will lead to very large power dissipation, they also have to be discarded. So, we find that a large number of devices which are fabricated are to be discarded because of this process parameter variation. So, we have to reduce the impact of this variation if we want to improve the yield. And you can see the parametric yield loss problem that can be represented by this diagram. Here is the channel length variation, as I have already mentioned, the channel length variation is the maximum. So, you can see as the channel length varies, the how the delay and power is changing. You can see in the earlier generations, the leakage current was insignificant, and as a consequence the power dissipation was primarily the dynamic power, and as a consequence, as the channel length increases, the capacitance increases and also delay increases, as you can see in the earlier generation technologies. So, delay increases, and also as the length increases, the power dissipation increases because of the increase in capacitance. So, that means, both delay and power both increases as the channel length increases. So, you have a kind of limit on the delay and also on the power. You can see if you set this the D max, this is the D max and this is the P max. So, this limits these two limits on these two parameters, delay and parameter, actually will force you to discard the chips, that means those dies which are lying in this range. So, essentially it is a one sided constraint in older technologies, but unfortunately the situation and change in the present day technology, where it has become a two sided constraint. As you can see, the power is no longer increasing as the channel length is increasing. As the channel length decreases, then the that threshold voltage decreases and leakage power increases exponentially, and this has led to increase in leakage power as we reduce the channel length. So, it is different from the earlier plots. So, in this particular case, it has now that delay is on the right side, delay constant, that means, the longer the channel length, larger will be the delay. So, this is the limit on the delay. So, the based on performance, you have to discard the dies which are falling in this range, but the dies which will fail because of larger power constant and this is the range over which the power constant is violated. So, the dies within this range ought to be discarded because of larger power dissipation. So, we find that now you have got a two-sided constant, and obviously larger number of dies ought to be discarded either because of delay or because of power variations. Earlier it was only on one side, and obviously the yield will decrease significantly because of this two-sided constant in current or future generation technologies. And this particular thing has been taken from the paper by Ashish Srivastava and Dennis Silver and David Blau. The paper is Statistical Analysis and Optimization of VLSI, Timing and Power. So, we find that the yield is decreasing because of variation in process parameter. So, what has to be done? We have to go for variation tolerant design approaches. That means, variation will take place. We have to design in such a way that circuit is tolerant to the variations. How can it be done? So, there are three basic approaches. First one is reduce source of variation. So, it is essentially prevention is better than cure. So, you would like to prevent the source of variation. How can it be done? It has to be done by using suitable fabrication of the device. So, device has to be fabricated in such a way that it will reduce the source of variations. So, for that purpose what you have to do, you have to realize circuits with multiple channel length and multiple threshold voltage. So, multi LE and multi VT insertion. So, that means circuit design has to be done, that means at the time of fabrication you have to realize with multiple channel length and multiple threshold voltage. Then you have to use suitable circuit styles and logic decisions so that the sources of variation is reduced, and power delivery and thermal design has to be done. That means, the way the power is delivered, that means the power network. So, you have to use sophisticated power tree, and by which the supply voltage is distributed within the chip, and also the thermal design has to be done. You have to identify, you have to do placement of the devices in such a way that there is no hot spot in a particular chip area. That means, the heat is distributed uniformly throughout the circuit. So, it may so happen that a particular area is more heated. So, you have to use thermal design, that means, the placement and routing ought to be done in such a way such that the hot spot does not occur, and that means, the heat dissipation from different parts is more or less uniform. Second technique is reduce effects of variation. That means, here already chip has been fabricated, and in spite of all the techniques that you use to reduce sources of variation, there will be some variation, and that variation can be effect of these variations can be reduced by suitable circuit design. So, I have already discussed about leakage reduction techniques. Those leakage reduction techniques, various leakage reduction techniques can be used to reduce the effect of variation, and also we have to go for variation tolerant circuits. That means, I shall discuss about some of the techniques by which you can realize variation tolerant circuits. Then dynamic compensation of circuits, compensation circuits. That means, the circuit will be designed in such a way that the effect of these variations will be automatically compensated. So, that is a kind of dynamic compensation circuit will be incorporated, that will be built in as part of the circuit, which will really compensate the dynamic variations. So, this is the you may say that these are the pre-silicon techniques. That means, before the chip is fabricated, you have to do the design in such a way that the impact of these variations is reduced. And another way of doing it is based on post silicon. So, reduce effects of variation by using post silicon techniques, and there are several techniques which have been developed. Number one is clock tuning, or this is also known as frequency binning. After the chips have been fabricated, you can divide into you can distribute the dies into different frequency bins. That means, some of the device are slow, you can put it in lower bin, some of the dies will be faster, you put them in lower bin and mark them. Then you sell them accordingly. That means, instead of discarding them, you will divide into different based on the frequency of operation, you will put them in different categories or different slots of frequencies, and or it is known as frequency binning or clock tuning. And that means, the dies, different dies will operate at different frequencies, that after the fabrication you will do measurements and then you will do the distribution of these dies to different clocks or different frequencies. Then adaptive body bias, after the fabrication has been done, you can use different body bias to two different dies. So, depending on the variation, the body bias value will be different. Later on we shall discuss more about it in details. Then another approach is adapted supply voltage. So, you instead of using a fixed supply voltage, you can use different supply voltages to different dies. That means, if a particular die is dissipating too much of current, you can instead of using high supply voltage, you can apply lower supply voltage, and similarly if a die is slow, you can apply a higher supply voltage, and so that the speed of operation increases. So, in this way you can use adaptive supply voltage or you can use adaptive body bias. These are post silicon techniques, which I shall discuss in detail later on. Okay, so, these are the various variation tolerant design approaches. First, let us focus on the first technique. You can see here, this is a single MOSFET transistor structure. So, this has been designed in such a way. So, this device with various channel doping implants, source drain extension SD. So, you can see source drain extension has been done. Then Gaussian halo. So, here there is a Gaussian halo and vertical retrograde well. So, you can see vertically there is a variation. So, you can see these things have been done to have been developed to mitigate short channel effects and to improve leakage characteristics. So, you can see a single transistor has to be fabricated with all these different different types of features, and there will be spacers on both sides. So, whenever you fabricate it with all these features, obviously the fabrication cost will be enormous. Obviously, the most of the short channel effects will be mitigated, and as a result if impact of variation will be smaller, but the cost of fabrication will be too much. So, this approach is not really very attractive for the fab houses. So, they will rather pass on the buck to the designers. So, we have designed whatever variation that will occur, that problem has to be solved by the designers. So, the fab house usually passes on the buck to the designers, and we shall see how they are tackled by the designers. So, in the deep submicron era, traditional deterministic CAD tools no longer serve the needs of IC designers. Nowadays, the CAD tools that you are assuming and that you are using are based on deterministic approach. By that I mean, they assume that those channel length, the threshold voltage and all other physical parameters, they are fixed. That means, for a particular technology when you are fabricating, they are fixed. That means, there you assume a fixed threshold voltage, you assume a fixed channel length, you assume a fixed silicon dioxide thickness and so on, and based on that you do the design using different CAD tools. And obviously, these tools assume corner based worst case values. That means, they will identify the worst possible delays, worst possible power dissipations, and they will find out the worst case corners, and for process parameters such as threshold voltage, channel length and metal line, and based on that they will do the design. And with larger process speeds of present day technology, corner based models become highly pessimistic, forcing designers to over design the products. That means, you will be designing in such a way that in spite of worst case variation, in the power dissipation, in the delay, the circuit will operate satisfactorily. And obviously, you have to design, the design has to be very conservative. So, whenever you do a very conservative design, obviously, you are not getting the most benefit out of it. That means, the profit erodes. Profit erodes means lot of devices are to be discarded, and it will increase the time to market. So, obviously, this is not, these techniques are not very attractive for the present day technology. So, this has ushered in the use of statistical CAD tools. So, you cannot really use those deterministic CAD tools. You have to go for statistical CAD tools. What do we really mean by that? In this case, you have to assume that a channel length L effective is no longer a fixed value. So, it will have a kind of Gaussian distribution over the nominal channel length. So, using this kind of distribution of a particular parameter. So, it can be effective channel length, it can be VT, it can be thickness of the silicon dioxide and so on. So, all these parameters are no longer fixed and constant, they are kind of random variable. So, you have to use statistical approach in synthesizing the circuits. So, instead of worst case delay value, more accurate estimation of actual circuit performance is obtained whenever you use these statistical techniques. And along with statistical CAD tools, it is essential to use variation tolerant circuit design approaches at different levels of design hierarchy. I shall discuss about some of the variation tolerant circuit design approaches which can be used at different levels of design hierarchy. And obviously, in this case, what is the role of the EDA tools? So, an EDA tool cannot improve the fab. So, that as I told, the fabrication house will keep on fabricating chips, and obviously, they will have their inherent process parameter variations that cannot be changed, and CAD tools cannot really do that. So, only thing the EDA tools, the electronic design automation tools can do, they can administer an immunity sort to the design. That means, they can use a kind of immunity sort, means they can design in such a way that it is more tolerant or immune to process parameter variations. So, that means, it is somewhat like error free communication through error prone channel. So, normally where you do digital communication, you do applied developed techniques. So, that when the signal is passing through a channel which is error prone, but your objective is to have error free communication, and for that purpose a lot of redundancy and various techniques we use. So, this is somewhat similar to that. You have to do the design in such a way that it is more tolerant or immune to process parameter variations. And for this purpose, what the designers need is process statistical data affecting yield, and unfortunately, usually there is a gap, communication gap between the fab houses. They keep some of their fabrication techniques or fabrication some secret. That means, they don't divulge all the information of their fabrication to the designers, and as a consequence a kind of communication gap exists. And if the designer has to do proper design, then the process statistical data affecting yield be more accessible to the designers. So, the fab houses should make these this information, process statistical data, make available to the designers, but always there is some gap. And data processing for design for yield must improve, and designers need design for yield tool that is easy to use and work well. So, these are the designer needs for developing suitable CAD tools for the future generation technologies. Now, one technique is your statistical static timing analysis. So, to overcome random variation, the basic idea is propagate delay distribution instead of deterministic delays. I have already told that delay is no longer a fixed value. That means, you cannot assume that a particular gate will have a fixed delay, say 3 input NAND gate will have a fixed delay of 3 nanosecond or something like that. You cannot tell it that way. As I told, it is a random variable, and the delay will be distributed, maybe it will be a Gaussian distribution, and that distribution has to be propagated instead of this deterministic delays in the timing graph, and compute node and path delay distributions, estimate distribution of circuit delay as joint distribution of path delays, and find chip timing yield from circuit delay distribution. So, you can see this is the I mean, instead of simple static timing analysis, you have to do statistical static timing analysis, and you have to consider different types of delays. So, handle different types of delay correlation within die systematic correlation, as I have already told. There can be systematic correlation. So, that means different parts of the die can have different variations because of the imperfection in the photolithographic process, and path sharing, there will be reconvergent fan out, then dependence of global source of variations. So, these are the I mean, you have to handle different types of delay correlation by the statistical static timing analysis. Now, I shall tell about a paper which has been recently published by Liu and Agarwal, statistical leakage and timing optimization for submicron process variation. It has been published by in that VLSI design conference in the year 2007. So, this is the traditional deterministic approach, where delay and subthreshold current of every gate are assumed to be fixed and without any effect on the process variation, and basic basic MILP is minimize the total leakage, keeping the circuit performance unchanged. So, this is how the integer linear programming is done for the deterministic approach. On the other hand, for statistical approach, you have to treat delay, timing and leakage as random variables with normal distributions, and the basic MILP for this particular approach is minimize the total nominal leakage, keeping a certain timing yield. So, this will be the integer linear minimizing the minimization criteria in integer linear programming, minimize the total nominal leakage, keeping a certain timing yield. Okay. So, based on this approach, in this paper they have reported some result. So, where you can see the impact of this statistical approach compared to deterministic approach. So, in this plot, if you can see, the first curve corresponds to deterministic LP, deterministic linear programming. So, leakage power reduces by deterministic approach is normalized to 1 unit. So, this is 1, and obviously, as you increase the timing, so then the leakage power reduces. That means, if you are ready to accept more and more delays, if you are if you can tolerate more delays, then obviously leakage current can be reduced, which I have already demonstrated by a technique called energy efficient energy, that we have discussed two approaches of leakage power minimization. One is your delay constraint, another was energy constraint. In energy constraint approach, we have seen if we can tolerate some delay, then leakage can be reduced significantly with by accepting say 4 to 9% of delay. So, here essentially the same approach is being used. So, if you increase the normalized timing, then leakage power can be reduced. So, this is the deterministic approach. Now, you can see 0.65 unit or 0.59 unit leakage power is achieved by statistical approach with 99% and 95% timing yield respectively. So, here you can see the 0.65, this point corresponds to 0.65 and this point corresponds to 0.59. So, you can see this is the statistical LP, this red line with 99% timing yield, and this one corresponds to statistical LP with 95% timing yield. So, you can see lower the timing yield, higher is the power saving. So, that means if you are ready to accept a larger delay, you can have higher yield. So, with a further relaxed Tmax, all three curves will give a more reduction in leakage power. So, if you are ready to accept larger delay, as I told, leakage power can be minimized. So, this is the power delay curves of statistical and deterministic approach for a particular circuit C 432. This is a ISCAS benchmark circuit C 432, and for that particular circuit this is the simulation result published in this paper I have already mentioned. So, you can see this is one technique, I mean this is a statistical approach which has been used in the design of a circuit. Okay. Let us come to another technique. We have already introduced the dual threshold CMOS technique. So, whenever you use dual threshold CMOS circuit, we know that we are using two types of transistors in the realization. For realizing the gates on the critical path, we are using transistors of lower threshold volt, and to realize gates on the non-critical path, we are using transistors of higher threshold voltage. So, now let us consider the situation where both the threshold voltages, lower threshold voltage and higher threshold voltages, are no longer fixed. They are they are having kind of normal distribution. So, here you can see this is the low threshold voltage, and which varies over this range, and this is the high threshold voltage which varies in this range. Now, you can see the low threshold voltage variation. You can see whenever the threshold voltage becomes in this range, that means the devices on the critical path will have so much of power dissipation that leakage current will be very high, and you have to discard those chips, those dies you have to discard, because they will be having lot of power dissipation. On the other hand, on this side those dies will have very slow performance, because some of the non-critical path delays will exceed the the timing budget. So, as a consequence you have to discard them. So, here you can see this use of this dual threshold CMOS technique not only requires extra marks, but they are vulnerable to process parameter variations. So, and this leads to lower yield. That means, this dual threshold CMOS implementation has inherent limitation of lower yield. That means, whenever you switch from single threshold implementation to dual threshold implementation, there is a possibility of smaller yield. So, we use dual threshold technique to reduce leakage power, but as you do so, it is prone to larger process parameter variation. So, it is vulnerable to process parameter variation, leading to lower yield. How can it be overcome? So, a single VT based approach has been proposed, and I shall discuss about that. So, this single VT based approach has been based on by making effective use of sizing to preserve performance. So, here the sizing has been used judiciously to preserve performance, and leakage power reduction has been achieved by using single threshold voltage, and it has been found that the leakage power reduction is comparable to that of dual VT approach using a single threshold voltage. So, that is the beauty of this approach. Without using dual threshold voltage, you are able to achieve leakage power reduction comparable to dual threshold voltage approach. So, by using a single threshold voltage, and obviously, it is less susceptible to process parameter variations, and it gives you higher yield. So, this is the target VT. That means, you are using a single threshold voltage. Obviously, this will be more than the lower threshold voltage and less than the higher threshold voltage whenever you use dual VT. So, you have to really identify this target VT, and how can it be done, I shall briefly discuss. And you can see this is neither violating the larger leakage, nor it is violating the larger delay. So, this will lead to better yield. So, these are the two this is based on the two papers, sizing for low power. This was published in a conference in Malaysia, May 2006. Another paper, yield aware approach for low power synthesis, published in Proceedings of ICC in December 2006, and subsequently a journal paper has also come out from this. So, you can see so let us see the basic approach, the steps of this approach. So, here step 1 is upsizing. First step is upsizing, that means what is being done, gates on the critical path are upsized to reduce delay, but it is not done by upsizing all the gates uniformly. What is being done? Upsizing is done based on fan out of the gate, because some experiment was carried out, it has been found that larger the fan out, you can see this is the fan out, larger the fan out, and this is the plot for different fan out. This is for fan out 3, this is for fan out 4, this is for fan out 5, this is for fan out 8. So, we find that the reduction in delay is more for gates of higher fan out. That means, if you increase the size 3 times, that means make the width 3 times wider, then you can see the reduction in delay will be, you can see it is 0.5 whenever the fan out is 8, compared to reduction of only 25% instead of 50%, 25% when the fan out is 3. What does it mean? It means that if you do the upsizing of the gates with higher fan out, with smaller increase in area, you will be able to achieve larger reduction in delay, and that is the reason why the gates with larger fan out are upsized instead of gates with smaller fan out. So, essentially upsizing is done in such a way that maximal reduction in delay take place with minimal increase in area. So, this is the first step, and at the end of this first step, this is the initial delay, area and power, and after the upsizing is done, that means some of the gates on the critical path have been increased, size has been increased, and obviously the area will become more. As you can see, this area will become more, however, delay will reduce because the delay of the critical path has been reduced by upsizing. As you know, as you increase the size, the delay reduces, as I have shown in the previous curve. We have seen that the delay reduces. So, delay of the critical path will reduce, which is shown by this, and however, the leakage energy will remain more or less the same value. So, there will be increase in area, but reduction in delay. So, this is the outcome of the step 1. Now, let us go to step 2, where leakage power, as you know, leakage power reduces exponentially and delay increases linearly with increase in threshold voltage. So, slack obtained in phase 1 is traded for high threshold voltage in phase 2. So, what is being done in this case? We have, by upsizing, we have achieved some slack, that means reduction in delay. Now, that reduction in delay will be traded for reducing the leakage power by increasing the threshold voltage of those gates. That means, not only the gates of the critical path, all the gates in the circuit will be now threshold voltage will be increased from this minimum value of 0.2 VDD to some larger value. What is that larger value? That we shall find out. So, slack obtained in phase 1 is traded for higher threshold voltage in phase 2. Starting from initial threshold voltage is increased in steps, and use of single high threshold voltage instead of dual threshold voltage leads to higher yield. So, this is what is being done, and you can see at the end of step 2, this is what we find. That means, obviously, there is an increase in area, but now the delay is same as the original circuit, because of the use of larger threshold voltage, delay has increased from this value. So, delay is now more, delay is now same as the original circuit, because we are now not compromising in performance. However, there is a significant reduction in leakage power because of exponential dependence of leakage on the threshold voltage. We have increased the threshold voltage, and as a consequence the leakage power has reduced significantly. Now, what is being done in the step 4, that there are the gates on the critical paths are downsized to maintain performance. Now, some of the gates on the non-critical path can be downsized. So, what will happen? Their delay will increase, but as long as the delay does not exceed the delay of the critical path, there is no problem. And here also the gates on the non-critical path are not upsized, not upsized arbitrarily. Again, there is a plot, that means the gates with smaller fan out are upsized rather than gates with larger fan out, because the gates with smaller fan out will have lesser impact on delay. That means, the delay will increase by smaller amount if you reduce the size of a gate with smaller fan out. So, each gate is downsized by a suitable scaling factor depending on its fan out. So, this increases the delay of the gate, reduces area and reduces leakage power. So, ultimately we get a plot like this. So, we find that now, so far as the delay is concerned, it is same as the original circuit. So, there is no compromise in performance, but because of downsizing of a large number of gates on the non-critical path, now the area has reduced, and the leakage power has also reduced, as you can see, by smaller amount from the previous value because of the reduction in area. So, we find that at the end of step 3 we are getting a circuit which has the same performance of the original circuit, but significantly lesser leakage power dissipation, and that too is achieved by using a single threshold voltage. So, this is the comparison. So, this is the case where here you can see this is the result of dual threshold voltage. So, whenever you realize by circuits using dual threshold voltage, there is a reduction of 72.06% occurs, and on the other hand, whenever we use this single threshold voltage by using the approach that I have discussed in detail, we can see there is 72.08% reduction in the leakage power. So, let us forget about the switching power, that reduction also occurs, and total power reduction is 63% compared to total power reduction of 58.41% in the case of dual threshold burst approach. This reduction is arising because of downsizing of the gates on the non-critical path. So, a capacitance reduces. So, upsizing has been done such that maximal reduction in delay take place with minimal increase in area. Downsizing has been done such that minimal increase in delay take place with maximal decrease in area. So, using single VT, the leakage power reduction is comparable to that of dual VT approach, and the approach is less sensitive to process parameter variations and provides higher yield. So, this has been verified by. So, here is the comparison of 4 different approaches. This is the delay constant dual VT approach, this is the energy constant dual VT approach, and this is the approach transistor sizing with optimal VT, which I have discussed in detail right now, and another approach is transistor sizing with dual VT. So, in this case we find that this approach, this transistor sizing with optimal VT, you can see this average percentage increase in mu and sigma of the delay distribution normalize with mu of the TSOB for all the benchmarks. So, this gives the best result. Similarly, average reduction in the mu and sigma of the leakage power distribution for all the SCUS benchmarks are shown. So, we find that TSV performs maximum reduction occurs in case of the third approach which has been proposed. And so, here average percentage reduction of mu and sigma for total power distribution, and here also maximum reduction occurs for this approach 83.68 and 73.21. So, mean and standard deviation, mu is mean and sigma is standard deviation. So, this parameter, so this approach parametric yield analysis has been we have used it, and some statistical approaches has been used to verify the efficacy of this approach, and where joint probability distributed function has been computed, and here is the plot of the joint probability distribution function of delay and logarithm of leakage power, that means the JPDF, joint probability distribution function, is a joint normal bivariate Gaussian distribution for the different approaches is given here. So, we find even by looking at the curves, we find this is the narrower. So, on this side is the delay, on this side is the logarithmic of leakage power for all the approaches. This is the initial one, this is the delay constant duality approach, this is the energy constant duality approach, and this is that TSDV approach, and this is the TSOV approach which I have discussed in detail. So, we find that variation is much smaller in this particular approach. Now, coming to other techniques which I have told, clock tuning and adaptive body bias and adaptive supply voltages can be used, and by here you can use adaptive body biasing to you can apply different body bias to different dies. So, if the chip is too hot, so you will increase the body bias, you can see, and it will push it to closer to the nominal threshold voltage. Similarly, if the device is too slow, then you can increase the body bias, that means you can use forward body bias, and you can improve the performance. So, we find that adaptive body biasing allows tuning of each die to meet specs, leads to increased yield. So, what you are doing after the fabrication has been done, each die is provided with different body bias. So, this can be done in two ways. So, entire die can be having a single body bias, or different parts of the die can have different body bias, as we shall see. So, in this particular plot, as you can see, these curves are without any body bias. So, you can find wide distribution of the normalized frequency and leakage. So, whenever you do adaptive body biasing, those yellow plots corresponds to adaptive body biasing. So, we find that frequency distribution is over a small range, that means the performance is improved significantly, and particularly when we do within die adaptive body biasing, that means different parts can have different body biases. So, this will definitely have better result instead of a single body bias for the entire die. So, this within die adaptive body biasing leads to still better performance. As you can see, most of the devices, those red plots correspond to within die adaptive body biasing, and yellow plots correspond to those I mean a single body bias for the entire die. So, this shows how the adaptive body biasing can be used to reduce to improve the yield. So, this shows the impact of adaptive body biasing on die to die, within die, and within die variations. So, starting with Vt lower than the target voltage, adaptive body bias can be used to match the mean Vt to all the die samples. So, what you can do? You can start with a die with smaller, that means you will fabricate in such a way that the threshold voltage will be smaller than the original. Then you will be using adaptive body biasing to have the target threshold voltage for all the dies. So, this is how for this die you are using a body bias to, so that it reaches the target threshold voltage. For this die, obviously a different body bias has to be used, and so on. So, this is how you can do it with adaptive body biasing to match the target threshold voltage from die to die. And here you can see the within die variations can also be you can also use within die variations can be reduced by applying different body biases. And in addition to that, you can use adaptive supply voltage. So, using adaptive supply voltage also you can reduce the impact of these variations. That means, the slower dies you will be using higher threshold voltage, higher supply voltage, and faster dies you will be using smaller supply voltage, and that is how you can see by using adaptive supply voltage, how the frequency of operation is improved. That means, most of the chips are now close to that frequency being 1. So, instead of the original distributions, the distribution is improving by using adaptive supply voltage. And here you can use you can combine adaptive supply voltage and adaptive body biasing can be done. You can see by using combined adaptive supply voltage and adaptive body biasing, most of the devices will be operating in the normal range. That means, slower devices are not existing and this is the somewhat similar thing which has been proposed in this paper by the group of the Dennis Sylvester group. So, they have used 3 phases. For each gate, compute probability distribution functions of its post silicon tuned body bias voltage. Then phase 2 perform statistically aware clustering of the gates using these probability distribution functions. Then in phase 3 perform post silicon tuning of the adaptive body bias clusters, and by that you can see you can have very good timing result compared to dual VT based design. So, with this we have come to the end of today's lecture, and we have discussed technology trend, we have discussed sources of variations, process voltage and temperature, impact of variations which leads to lower yield, and we have discussed various variation tolerant designs to reduce sources of variations in 3 approaches I have mentioned. At the time of fabrication, then the pre-silicon design approaches and post-silicon approaches I have discussed in detail. So, with this we have come to the end of today's lecture on variation tolerant design. Thank you.